so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life? Well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online, and you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's interview episode, I'm very excited to have Mary Shores here with me on the show. Mary is an entrepreneur, thought leader, communication specialist, and author of the recently published book, Conscious Communications. Hey there, Mary. Welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. You've got such an exciting show going on.
Oh, it is definitely exciting and a labor of love, and it's just a little bit more exciting having you on today. I do 5 shows a week, and I look so forward to the one a week where it's not me just talking, and I get to hear other people's thoughts and opinions and ideas. And so this is all about you, and I'm very, very grateful that you've taken the time to come and share some of your wisdom.
Yeah, great. I'm excited to get to it.
Well, I'm going to start with the same question. I always start with the same question and end with the same question. So I'm a little predictable in that way, but I love the questions, obviously. And it really sets the tone for sort of where you're coming from and all the things we'll talk about, over the course of this conversation. And that initial question is, you're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Oh, wow. What a fun question. I would say my passion is just experiencing everything in life that there is to experience. Total omniscience. I want to do everything, try everything, and learn everything about the universe and how it works.
Beautiful. Well, that would make a lot of sense as to why you're on this show, because I relate very much with that answer. It's like it's such a magical world that we live in when you have the right perspective and you're looking at it from that sort of, what I heard with that answer is like that childlike, sort of presence, and the inner child has not been destroyed inside you, which is wonderful. And I think that is one of the keys. And for those who maybe the inner child is sleeping, we just need to wake them up a little bit, right?
Wake her up. Yes.
Wake her up. So why don't we start? Why don't you give a little background on who you are and where you're coming from, and what your own journey has been, and then we'll dig into your new book and some other exciting topics here.
Well, I am definitely a mom. I am a serial entrepreneur, so I'm just one of those people that's always working on a project. My superpower is in personal development and meeting people at the level where they're at, either in their personal development or their spiritual development, and raising them up to where they want to be. Now, I don't do that through any kind of coaching, but I do that through the things that I share on my newsletters, in my Facebook group, Fearless Ambition, and through my brand new book through Hay House called Conscious Communications, which is all about having a step-by-step guide that harnesses the power of your words to change your mind, your choices, and your life.
I love that. I love that. You know, it's so great. I love synchronicity. And of course, we'll get to a synchronicity story later in the show. But just yesterday, I had a good friend of mine, Christopher Jackson, on the show. And he co-hosted with me, and we talked all about communication. It's one of those topics, and here it is again. You know, I'm recording, and this will come out a little bit after that episode with him. But I love seeing those themes, and this is certainly such a big topic, and it's one we circle all the time on the show because you know, your words, as I like to say, you know, it's spelling. You're casting a spell. You know, abracadabra. As I speak, I create, and so it's so few of us realize, or I think a lot of people tuning into this show are realizing more and more, what am I communicating? What's coming out of my mouth? What is, you know, it's all vibration. It's all attracting something. It's all co-creating something. And so I would love to get your book just was released. Congratulations, by the way. And that's a huge accomplishment. And I haven't had the pleasure of reading it. I would absolutely love, and I know the listeners would love to get sort of the firsthand breakdown of, you know, because the subtitle of the book, Your Step-by-Step Guide to Harnessing the Power of Your Words to Change Your Mind, Your Choices, Your Life. Would you be willing to go into some of that for us and just kind of share what people might find in the book?
I am happy to. So I think that subtitle definitely says a lot about what's in the book. And the reason that I chose harness the power of your words as opposed to say harness the power of your thoughts or your actions is because I feel like what we're really trying to accomplish here when we're talking about manifestation is the thought of alignment. And I like to start with alignment because for my many years of trying to study this type of work, I was very confused by the term alignment. It was like, are you speaking Spanish to me right now? I totally could not get it. And I think that once I did get it, it was like this huge light bulb moment where I realized that my feelings, my thoughts, my words, my actions, my choices, you know, everything had to be moving in the same direction of what I want. And what I've really figured out is, and I know you're an Abraham Hicks fan, so I'll use Hicks terminology.
Definitely.
Which is like, we all have this vibrational escrow. And this vibrational escrow is like basically an escrow of everything that we've ever manifested in our thoughts. But to me, the important thing is, how do you connect to the desirable things in your escrow as opposed to connecting to the chaotic things in your escrow?
Right.
Because when we hear this like exciting vibrational escrow, which has got like all of our hopes and dreams and wishes and everything we've ever thought of. Well, guess what? The alcoholism's also in the vibrational escrow. Sure. The car accident's also in the vibrational escrow. So is the losing of the job or the business or, you know, your car breaking down or, you know, chaos. Just chaos is in that escrow. Right. So you've got all the wonderful things and you've got all the chaos. So what my book really does is it teaches you how do you connect to the desirable items in your vibrational escrow so you can get control over what you manifest. Because, you know, as things sort of pop up in your life, why not have those pop-ups be good things? And so going back to this term alignment, thoughts, feelings, words, actions, moving in the direction of that thing. I always picture this like fishing rod, like I'm fishing something out of my vibrational escrow. And how do I do that? I do that by getting in alignment. And what I found very much through trial and error is like me trying to control my thoughts is like, I might as well be trying to control that hurricane because it ain't happening. So thoughts was not my entry point. Okay. Feelings. I mean, I am a passionate female, and have you ever tried to control the emotions of a passionate female before? Like, yeah, how far did that get?
I've got a few scars, yeah.
Right, gets you scars. I love that. So, but can you see that maybe trying to control those feelings wasn't the right entry point either? But what I could control was my words. And you said it perfectly because you said abracadabra. Abracadabra means abara. It's ancient Aramaic word. Abara, I will create. Kadabara, as I speak. I will create as I speak.
Right.
Brandon, I woke up one day. I just had to learn the Hebrew alphabet. It was crazy.
Wow.
So I went on YouTube. I started looking, found this rabbi who was recording his Hebrew classes. And at 29 minutes into the video, that is what he said. I knew the reason that I woke up thinking I had to learn the Hebrew alphabet was so I could hear abracadabra, because at that time I was sort of still wrestling with the title of the book and the subtitle and, really how I was going to spin this. So your words is what you can control.
Right.
And the more you learn to control your words, the better of a fisherman you become out of that vibrational escrow.
Right. Yeah, it's, and you even take back, you even go back to speaking of, the Bible, even at the very beginning of the Bible, what is the scripture basically indicating, I forget it, I don't want to say it incorrectly, but basically it's indicating, and the Word was God, and, the Word became life, essentially. So you go back to the very beginning even of, the most celebrated religious text, and it's indicating how powerful words are, and that actually this is what God spoke reality into existence.
I love that.
Yeah, it's and then when you start to kind of take that one step further, and if we're all, fractals of the one source consciousness, we're chips off the block, we're mini gods and goddesses, if you will, as I believe, and I'm assuming that you resonate with the idea that we're one with the source that created us, then, it makes sense. It's like, well, if that's how our higher self or the collective source creates, that only makes sense that it would trickle on down the line, right?
The deeper I go down that rabbit hole of what I believe, the more and more I realize we don't have anything figured out. And honestly, I don't think it even matters. Like whether I believe in source, the universe, God, a deity, what matters is how I feel every day and
Right.
what I am doing to connect myself with the things that I want to create in this lifetime. Because I, would go through these like mini existential crises.
Mm-hmm.
And like, for example, I was dating someone that was an atheist.
Okay.
And, it was like bug me. But then I think, well, what does it matter to me? Because who am I to dictate what his life experience is this time around?
Right.
He could have chosen. He could have chosen that he wanted to have. I mean, he could have been a monk in his past life, but he might have chosen this time that he just wants to have a break from that. He wants to experience a lifetime without spirituality, and that's not wrong.
Right. No, that's such a great point. It's like, and it so removes the whole judgment thing, right? When you start looking at things from
pressure.
And you start looking at things from the perspective of, as you said, this time around, which is sort of an indicator of, many lives or the potential of many lives. And maybe that's a belief that you share this time around, that you feel attracted to and connected to, as I do. It's like, what I love about that perspective is it opens up for so much. It's like the person who's out there, robbing and murdering right now, for example, if we're going to judge that person, well, based off of this idea that we've, I personally believe we've been there, done it all, and at some level it is all of us. It's just how many degrees of separation we are from it, in our current incarnation.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's a heavy topic, of course, and so let's get back a little bit to your book. Application is sort of something that you really specialize in, and getting in alignment and really real work, because a lot of times with these topics it can be so hard to put a finger on, and it's philosophizing and there's no real world application, and you've got a step-by-step guide. Can you touch on some of those steps?
I love what you said just now. It can be hard to pinpoint what you're supposed to do. And the reason for that is because we live in this society, or we live in this time period where we really just want someone to tell us what to do. Life has gotten so complicated.
Right.
And my thought process after, years of studying all different modalities is that it doesn't really matter what you do, so long as you're doing something. But we get tripped up in all of these rules. And so as a blanket goal for yourself, your goal is to be creating brand new neural pathways in your subconscious mind that are going to allow you to have the belief that what you want to be true in life is true for you, and that you're moving every day in the direction of what it is that you want to accomplish. So I am a very action-oriented and goal-oriented person in general. So people that are reading this book, they're really getting impacted by all of the aha moments. And, we're smack dab in the middle of this really huge positive psychology movement. But the result of that can be, we can begin to feel bad or guilty if we have any thoughts that are not positive, because we think if we have an unpositive thought, and believe me, out of my 70 or 80,000 thoughts a day, I'm going to tell you what, probably 40% of them are not pleasant. Like, they're kind of strange even,
right.
Things that I wouldn't say out loud that I think about. It's really weird. But the difference is, where can I use my point of focus to pay more attention to the thoughts that are leading me in the direction that I want to go? So that's what the important thing is. And the methods, there's so many of them. So in the book, we're going to do things like, one of the examples is creating a gratitude group. So for example, on January 27th, 2015, I reached out in my Tony Robbins group on Facebook, and I said, hey, looking for 2 women to share gratitudes. And I had 40 women respond.
Wow.
So I was like, shit, I don't want to share gratitudes with 40 people. Like, I'm just thinking that's going to be like, who's got time for that? So I started a Facebook group called Declaring Gratitude, and it's still active today, so people can join it if they want. But it is for women. I just want to throw that out there. Sorry, Brandon, you can't join. But you can start your own.
I mean, if I go through a very elaborate process, I might be able to join. I don't know if I want to join that bad, but
right, probably not. So here's the thing, that I set up all these women in these little mini pods of 4 women each, and we've all been sharing gratitudes with each other in our smaller groups for this 2.5 years. But what I started to notice is, when I got about 45 days into this daily gratitude practice, that it did begin to shift my thoughts. And so, there's a practical piece of advice for your listeners right there, that if you create an accountability partner, so it's not even just about, like, for me, I have to have the accountability. So it's not just enough to say, I'm going to be grateful every day. But now I've got 3 girlfriends that I'm accountable to, because they send me their gratitudes. I look forward to getting them. They look forward to getting mine. 2.5 years ago, we were strangers, and now we are like the closest women, all in different corners of the world. So 2 of us in the US, 2 of us overseas, and we've now all met. And so it's become this very magical thing.
Beautiful.
But, another trick is, like, one of the things I did was, for 1 year, I wrote a page of affirmations a day. And this was my daily practice. I got up in the morning, I wrote my affirmations on paper, because I like to have that writing and brain connection created. I did these affirmations. And again, 45 days in, it began to shift my thoughts. So why am I saying all this? Is because I want you to understand that shifting your thoughts to get into alignment with what you want is the trickier aspect. And it's how you can use your words, because gratitude is a form of words. Affirmations are a form of words. Writing is using words. It's like all these different ways you can use words that will then turn around and, in a feedback loop, adjust your thoughts.
Right.
It doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice. You've got to move in that direction of making this your daily habit.
Right, right. You make me think instantly of my very close friend and brother Shane, who, speaking of Tony Robbins, several years ago, he was going to all the Tony Robbins events and was like, "You've got to go, Brandon, you've got to go," and sent me to Date with Destiny in Australia, and it was like an amazing gift. And one of the things that he always talks about is rituals and how important creating a ritual is to give things energy, to give things power. And that's really what you're talking about here, right? The ritual of, sharing with these sisters, these, friends that you share gratitudes with, the ritual of getting up every day and writing. So it's almost like, when we think back, the word ritual, you instantly think of like witches stirring a pot and all those things. But really, there's so many different types of rituals. And what were they doing? Even you take that more extreme example, it's like they're just giving a lot of energy to something. And when you come together, more than, one person, they say, that it's a exponential power is created when you create ritual. It's one thing to do it by yourself, and it's another thing in a group of, where, to use the Bible again, I think it's where more than one is gathered. And I think what they're getting at there is when you have more than one person participating in some sort of ritualistic expression, it creates a lot of movement and energy.
That is extremely well said. And yes, what I'm hearing you say is that because I've got other women involved in this gratitude practice, that we're actually feeding off each other's energy and becoming even that much more powerful, which I would agree, because all four of us in my little group, our lives have completely changed. So, in January 2015, when I started this, I had a dream to write a book. I actually not only had a dream to write a book, but I specifically wanted Hay House to publish it. And the reason I wanted Hay House to publish it is because Louise Hay is my personal idol. I mean, so many people. I feel she's amazing. Yeah, and I literally said to myself, I want to be Louise's protege someday, and just said, I am the queen of affirmations. Let's make this happen. And within 10 months of that statement, I had a book deal with Hay House.
Wow. Congratulations on that. I mean, obviously, you're someone who is walking the talk and, really, really getting down this whole manifestation thing. And, you referenced, speaking of manifestation and vibrational escrow and all those things, one of the things that you mentioned when we were talking before we started recording was you actually had the chance to get in the hot seat with Abraham and talk to Abraham. And I would love to hear about that. As my regular listeners know, I'm a big fan and follower of Abraham's teachings. And so I'd love to hear what was given to you directly.
Sure. Well, I believe that I went to see Abraham. It was probably in round about October 2012 up in Chicago. And I went with a girlfriend. And honestly, we were curious, you know what I mean? So at that time, there was even times that I would say I was a little hesitant to the teachings of Abraham. Not that there was anything hesitant about what she was saying or resistance to what she was saying, but I grew up Lutheran. So culturally, I'm Lutheran. And so what I had in those early days was still some resistance to some old belief systems that were still lingering in my subconscious. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because of that, I did have a little bit of resistance, but I also had this curiosity, and the curiosity won 10 times over the resistance. So my girlfriend and I, we truck it up to Chicago, and we're having a great time, and we don't know whether we're going to see professional people or circus freaks. Is this a gathering of carnies? Because if it is, tell me now, right?
Yeah, I'll make sure and stop and get my red nose and floppy shoes.
But when you're going to something that was a little bit out of your comfort zone, you don't know, right? Well, guess what? There were beautiful, enlightening people there. There was physicists. There were teachers. There were business people. There were no clown suits.
Right.
There were no carnies. It was fine. We were safe. So we're paying attention all day. And, every time in between sessions, she'll say, raise your hand. And basically like Abraham guides her on who to pick.
Sure.
So I didn't raise my hand the entire day because really, what was I going to get up there and say?
Right.
But at the last minute, when it was one of the last people that she was picking, I just had this thought in my head. Raise your hand to prove to yourself law of attraction is real. And I did not even get my hand a third of the way up, and I was sitting in the back.
Wow.
And she called on me, and it was instantaneous. Like I had the thought, my hand started going up, she called on me. I go up and I'm sitting, 5 feet from her. And it was a really interesting experience. I mean, I was a little shell-shocked from having like the camera on me and stuff. But Abraham basically told me that I was one of the most powerful manifestors that they had ever seen. Wow. And by the way, I have been told this already in like my astrology reports and my numerology. I have been told this a lot.
Wow.
So this was no surprise to me. But what I really realized after that day was like I had to go from everyone telling me this to believing it myself.
Sure.
And Abraham was a big part of that. But just even to have that experience of saying in my mind, like, if you raise your hand, this is it. Like, this is your truth now. And sure enough, this is my truth. Like, I understand from a neuroscientific point of view why law of attraction is real.
Right. Wow. So that's a powerful message, especially to get directly from Abraham in that setting. And what's so beautiful about it is it's just, as you sort of alluded to there, it's hardwiring that into you. And really anyone, in this case, you had this external sort of urging and reinforcement, which I've had some similar experiences where things are sort of externally reinforced to build up my own image of of what I'm capable of manifesting and creating and things like that. And sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that how this resonated for me was to understand that I am a powerful manifestor.
Right.
But I was not in control of what I was manifesting. So like, here's real world what was happening to me. When I got divorced in 2008, every one of my appliances broke. Wow. The washer, the dryer, the stove, the refrigerator. My basement flooded more than once.
Wow.
Okay. So I had such strong emotions over my divorce that I was in such a low vibration of despair and anger, and just like I was in this deep, dark hole that people could not reach me in there. But what was I creating in my external world? So what I learned from that is that I am a powerful manifestor, and I need to learn how to control that manifestation. That's why my friends call me the Rosetta Stone of manifestation, because once I figured out how to channel that energy in the direction of things that I wanted to create, my life turned around exponentially quickly.
Wow. Isn't that a beautiful thing when you start to get that confidence? And I think there's so many listeners out there who are hearing this who are at different levels in that. Some people who are brand new to this information. You have other people who are years and years down this path and have manifested all kinds of things. So it's and I'm sure you'd agree, my message is to those people is anything that you're hearing or seeing, Mary in this case is a reflection of you. It's like if she has that power to tap into, so do you. And by telling that, speaking of words and the power of words, by telling the story, right? And then you're of the Rosetta Stone of manifestation. I love that. You're sharing that story. Now you're putting that idea and concept into my mind. Oh yeah, Mary is the Rosetta Stone of manifestation. You're putting that idea into other people's minds who are now co-creating this truth along with you. So it's a beautiful thing to use, and it's a great example of using your powers in a very positive way to sort of continue to build your own personal power. And of course, when those powers are aligned with good, as they are with you and helping others and so forth, I mean, the sky's the limit what you can do with that, right?
It's so true. And I love the listeners and the people who are just stepping their foot into this world, and that those people who are perhaps somewhat resistant to the idea of law of attraction or just even spirituality in general, because that's where I was at in the many years it took me to learn, which is the reason why I use I use neuroscience to explain how and why we are creating our own reality. And the words law of attraction actually don't appear in my book even once.
Right.
Because I really do want to get into that audience that would not normally digest this type of material. So I love being in the personal development world. I actually just got this note from one of the senior trainers at the Tony Robbins organizations. His name's Chuck. He's been in the Tony Robbins organization for over 30 years. He's one of the people who leads all the firewalks. So he says, this is a great book. As someone who's been training in personal development for 20 years, I cannot say enough about how accurate and direct Mary Shore's approach is. Through personal experience and great exercises, she leads you to ahas that will dramatically improve your internal and external communication. So that's just like, to me, that's very meaningful, because that sort of Tony Robbins personal development world, that's totally my jam.
Yeah. It's definitely intense. And Tony is a brilliant man who's obviously touched so many people's lives. And what's interesting about him is, it seems like he's gotten more and more sort of, as the years have gone on, more and more sort of spiritual leanings. Like, would you agree with that?
I think if you've been to Date with Destiny, which I know that you have, you definitely see that side of things. And I feel like the Tony Robbins was really my entry into, a world of new possibilities, because I went to my first Unleash the Power Within event in 2005. So I would definitely agree with that. And also, I'm very much in alignment with some of Tony's teachings, and about not that your story that you're telling yourself about yourself really becomes your identity. And, so like in this conversation, I've told you two stories. Talked about my divorce, and I talked about like my experience with Abraham.
Right.
And I just got this note from a reader of the book that says, "Thank you, Mary, for writing this book and sharing your life story in inspiring words. I'm only on chapter 2, but I've been absorbing every word, writing pages of notes and thoughts in my journal. I've said out loud yes so many times." And she goes on to talk about how she feels like she's lost herself and felt crippled by anxiety and self-doubt. And she's been taking herself out of the game and becoming a spectator in her own life. That she doesn't like what she sees anymore, how she doesn't like how she feels, and it's time to dig herself out of this dark pit and love herself again. So what she learned from the book is, and it says she actually says it hit her over the head and made her realize that the story that she has used to make connections with other people were actually disconnecting her from life. So how when you've got your victimhood story, and that story, when you first meet someone else, it's like you want to connect with that person. So you tell them this tragic story. Right. But those connections are not the ones that will turn out to empower yourself. So she's like, she realized, and what she learned from the book is that she wants to make connections through her empowering stories.
Right.
Not through the negative ones.
Yeah. That's such a reiteration of what I was really trying to get at when I was talking about what you were doing. You're sharing this story of empowerment, and you're weaving these stories. And that's the beautiful thing about it, and something that I do myself, and I encourage everyone to do. I tell the story. I don't believe in getting sick, and it's something that has served. It's a story that has served me well. If someone has the flu, oh, stay away, I've got the flu. I'm like, oh, no, I don't believe in getting sick. I'll then hug them. I'll make a spectacle of it. No, not a huge spectacle. I make my point and I make it known. And what am I doing? By telling this story, I'm creating my reality as someone who, I can count on, 2 hands the number of times I ever remember being sick my entire life. And so it's
you are creating your reality. By telling your stories, you are creating your reality. And the reason that is true is because every time time you're telling a story, you are reinforcing the neural network that created that story in the first place. So if you tell the story of being sick all the time, then you're reinforcing the neural pathways in your subconscious mind that create the sickness. But if you tell the empowerment stories, then you are reinforcing those neural networks and even creating new neural networks. It's really fascinating. When you start applying neuroscience, like Bruce Lipton level stuff, when you start applying that neuroscience to this, and you really understand it, then the exercises you do in your daily practices or rituals become even more focused and powerful.
All right. Well, now seems like a good time to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I have ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting the Positive Head podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting this show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. They have a plethora of amazing content to always keep your positive head spinning. For example, in the brand new series Beyond the Legend, best-selling author of Chariot of the Gods, Eric von Daniken, takes us beyond the myths and legends that have shaped our view of history to present an alternate view of historical events, megalithic structures, and archaeological discoveries. Eric's been researching this stuff for over 50 years. So if you've ever wanted to deep dive into these sorts of topics that you're just not going to find on traditional networks, Eric is doing just that on Beyond the Legend. And that's just one example of fascinating content you can find on Gaia. As you all hear me constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positive head. That's spelled GAIA.com/positive head. Check it out. Yeah. I had the pleasure of interviewing Bruce Lipton a while back. So any of you guys who have not checked out, well, for one, the Bruce Lipton interview, and you can go and search the Positive Head archives and check that out. But I highly recommend going to YouTube. There's a video called, it's about an hour, and it's a summary of his book, Biology of Belief. And you can watch it in that hour on YouTube. And it is life-changing when you understand, and he shows scientifically, and especially for those of you guys that are scientific, have a scientific slant in how you like to view things, and really love that reinforcement when we're talking about some of these more woo-woo ideas of, creating magic in your reality. It's like he shows you the science of how your belief actually creates what you experience.
Yeah, and I do the same thing in conscious communications. As a matter of fact, I've got an entire chapter that is based on the work of your nervous system, your hormones, and all of your neural networks and stuff, which is basically what I learned from Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I've, really talk about in the book how we are powering your body with your chemistry, and that's what the Biology of Belief is all about. Yeah.
It's and it makes me think of, we have a Facebook group, Positive Heads, where a lot of listeners connect and share and open up with each other and ask questions. And I noticed someone had posted in the group the other day about seeing feathers, and this kind of leads into the synchronicity. I love getting stories of synchronicity and serendipity and things like that. And they'd asked about, so do any of you guys, a lot of times people will be posting about something they saw and what the meaning of it and things like that. And this particular person said, well, I saw a feather and it got me thinking about what is the meaning of seeing that white feather. And then it got me thinking a step further, well, am I just creating meaning? And then I saw a bunch more and I'm like, well, maybe they're just feathers and maybe they don't mean anything. What do you guys think? And it's like, instantly what my thought was, it's a great topic and a great point. It's like everything is almost neutral by nature, and you're determining whether it's a magical meaning. And if you decide it's a meaning for you, and then you look it up and you determine, you put the energy into that, then it becomes that for you. If you say, oh, there's just a feather, just the same way there's a rock and whatever else is laying around, a puddle, then that's what it means. So I think people don't realize how powerful of creators that we are, in my opinion. You're determining what it means, and what it means for one person isn't necessarily what it means for someone else. And it's all valid, because as your own, private creator of your own universe, as I like to say, you're defining things in this way.
Yeah, because humans, and I say this a lot, humans in general, we are meaning-making machines. Right. So we definitely explore our world out of making meanings from it. And that's served our survival well, because, knowing which side of the tree that the moss grows on, and we know what that means, helps us survive in our world. And so we definitely are instinctual that we look for meaning in everything. We look for meaning in what we see in the clouds. We look for, right. Every little thing has meaning. Even if we drive past a billboard and it sometimes seems like it just had the perfect message that you needed to hear that day. Also, there's this, in the brain, what's miraculous about the brain. Do you ever have the experience where you open up a magazine or a newspaper and it seems like something jumped out at the page at you and it was just the perfect thing that you needed to read at that moment?
For sure.
Okay, so we love that kind of synchronicity. Well, the reason that happens is because when you opened the magazine and you looked at the page, instantly your brain in your subconscious actually read every single word on that page. And then there's a mechanism in your brain that gave to your that gave to your conscious mind, the 5% of your conscious mind in your prefrontal cortex, gave that information of where to look to see what you needed to know. But all of those unconscious activities you're not aware of it. So you, Brandon, the conscious Brandon, cannot understand that your brain just read every word on that page. But let me explain it to you this way. If you, the way your body moves around, like you're moving your arm, your legs, your heart is beating, you've got all of these biological functions that are happening trillions of times a day, and you are not consciously aware of any of them. Mm-hmm. That is exactly the same thing I'm talking about, that when you open a page, you actually read every single word in your subconscious mind, and then the subconscious mind feeds to the conscious mind what to show you. And that is the reason why you can open up a book or a magazine and you can it's almost like, I say it like that, it's like it jumped out at the page at me.
Right. It was pushed in your direction, essentially.
Yes, and it was done that way deliberately by your subconscious mind because it was something that you desired to know. Right.
Interesting. It's how complicated the process is, and then how seamless the actual experience is. It's we are truly amazing creatures, amazing beings. One of the things that I know you speak about and have some wisdom to share that I would love to hear, and I know the listeners would love to hear, is, as an entrepreneur and as a fellow entrepreneur, you and I's paths are similar, it seems. I've been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. I am obviously on a similar path of not only improving my own self and becoming more aware, but sort of taking others along with me on that journey through this podcast, and certainly looking at writing some books and things like that in the future. How does one find, with all the things coming at them, and this is something that I know I've struggled with, it's like I will often say, and I even question this statement, even though I use it, if it's really a good one to use, but I say, I can do anything, I just can't do everything. And I guess at some level, there's definitely truth in that. And as we sort of, open up to more and more possibilities, and I'm capable of so much, and then there's, more opportunities appear, how do I living my most authentic purpose? How do I resonate with with the greatest and grandest version of my character, and which is going to have the most rewarding experience.
Well, we could talk about a lot of things because you've gone in a few different directions there. Like, first thing was something about how to discipline yourself to focus on the things that are going to get you to what you want, when you're saying, like, was you have so many things being thrown at you. Mm-hmm. So that really takes a lot of discipline to train your focus on and detach your things. You have to learn to detach yourself from the things that are not in your path. And then the other part of it, which I really love to talk about, is things that, how do you align yourself with your true purpose? And so my easy trick, and this is in the book of how to do this, is ask you the question: if you were to be any superhero, and it doesn't have to be a hero like with a cape, it can be a TV character, an archetype, someone throughout history. But if you could be one of those archetypes or superheroes, who would you choose? You could choose more than one, too.
I had this question a long time ago by someone, and I don't remember the context of the question, but I remember my answer, and it's this first one that jumps to my mind, again, is Dr. Manhattan. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Manhattan from the movie. Oh, what is the movie? I'm going blank. I bet a bunch of people are out there thinking, exactly what it is.
I'm Googling it right now.
The Watchmen. There it is. Okay, I just Googled it. Yeah. So Dr. Manhattan is an amazing character who became, he got exposed to radioactivity, and basically his body was dissolved, and then he came back as this light being, and he was basically, like godlike and all-knowing. And so that would be my answer, I think.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you talk about is this person who's really omniscient, like somebody that is all-knowing.
Right.
And so there must be some aspect of your personality that desires to be all-knowing. So, like, for example, mine, when I was going through this process myself, who I chose was a cross between Jessica Rabbit and... I know.
That's cool. I like that answer.
If you knew me, it would totally make sense, that answer. Because, like, Jessica Rabbit, I'm very tall. I'm very tall, very curvy, and I'm a Scorpio, so you know what that means.
Right.
So anyway, so I'm like this Jessica Rabbit person, but I was Jessica Rabbit because also, like, Jessica Rabbit, she always stood by Roger Rabbit. You know what I mean? Like, she could probably have any guy she wanted, but here she chose this Roger Rabbit who's kind of goofy and a force for good. And she really just loved being in that partnership and building what she built with Roger Rabbit. But then I also had this way that I crossed it with Scarlett O'Hara, because Scarlett, in my mind, she is like business brilliant. Like, right. Scarlett, she is a cutthroat businesswoman. She knows what she wants. She goes after it. And that's also very, very much me. Well, what I realized was that Scarlett also constantly had a lot of chaos in her life. And the more I identified with Scarlett, I was like, you know what? Scarlett's strong because she's always having to struggle. And it's great to be a strong woman, but how much am I identifying with the struggles and the chaos of life? And at the time, it was definitely true. So I decided that I was trading Scarlett for Dorothy, because Dorothy had the power all along.
I love it.
Dorothy had unconditional love and support from the Tin Man, the lion.
Yep.
And who is the other one? The Scarecrow. Yeah. So she had this unconditional love and support, and she had the power all along. So, like, when you understand, because I know, like, earlier in the show, you quoted the Bible. In the Lost Gospel of, I think it's Thomas, it says, when you bring forth what is within you will save you. When you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you.
Wow.
So my point here is that when you figure out how to put that aspect of yourself in charge, when you figure out how to put Dr. Manhattan in charge, your life, just that one thing will change your life. And so I put Dorothy in charge. And when I put Dorothy in charge, my choices change because I can become more confident that I have unconditional love and support. I can become more confident that I have the power to create what I want to create. When you put Dr. Manhattan in charge and you're all knowing, then
Right.
you can trust in your decisions. And I have a friend that he called me one day, which is really how this made it into the book, my buddy Rocky. He called me, and you'll understand this because you've been to Date with Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
He called me and he said, Mary, he goes, I just have to talk to you. It was 7:00 in the morning. He was all juiced up and he said, I put Braveheart in charge. And of course, Braveheart is all about freedom.
Right.
And at Date with Destiny, they do that freedom chant and it is so very powerful. But then he proceeded to explain to me every aspect of his life that has changed ever since he put Braveheart in charge.
Wow.
And it was a miracle. I mean, Marianne Williamson says a miracle is but a shift in perception. So there you go.
Beautiful. You know what I hear when, hear you break that down and sort of analyze my choice and then your choice for ultimately Dorothy is kind of like the caterpillar to the butterfly, idea. And really what I hear is, getting in alignment with our higher self. My higher self is all knowing. It can manifest things. Dr. Manhattan can manifest things and it's just a super powerful light being, and, same with Dorothy, the magic around Dorothy and it's sort of getting into that, and I say it all the time on the show, getting into alignment with your higher self, this higher part of yourself, this non-physical part of yourself, your soul, whatever you want to call it. It has a view of the chessboard of life, so to speak, that we just don't have. And when you can bring that in and just tap into that wisdom and tap into your intuition and tap into, okay, if I was all knowing, what would I see and understand about this scenario? And as a result, make my decision. As an entrepreneur and businesswoman, you understand this. The more insight you have, the more data that you have about what's going on with your company, the more educated decisions you can make. And that's why, in this internet age, information data is the most valuable thing there is for companies to cultivate. And that's sort of what I hear and think about as you talk about that very interesting thought experiment.
I love that you said the caterpillar to the butterfly, because the way that the other story that I use in the book is talking about, do you remember the movie Fried Green Tomatoes?
I remember it was a book, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Originally, I remember the book as a kid, and I don't think I ever read it or saw the movie though.
So in the movie, it's this story of this middle-aged housewife named Evelyn, and she's sort of stagnant in her life. Like, she doesn't have a career. She's really just sees herself as an overweight, dull housewife who doesn't have much of a life. Well, and so throughout the movie, she starts to take on this persona of Tawanda. And Tawanda is like one of these Amazonian goddesses. And so she puts Tawanda in charge. And when she puts Tawanda in charge, like, she takes control. And I'm sure we all remember that trailer and that scene where she like wrecks into the younger girls' cars. And, they start cussing her out or whatever. And she's like, well, I'm older and I've got better insurance. So that's sort of the tagline of that whole movie, is how she became so powerful because she put Tawanda in charge.
Yeah, and this is, once again, what pops up for me. Date with Destiny, Tony Robbins. You know how he does these interventions with people. And I remember him taking couples, and one couple in particular, and, they had hit a rut, and he kind of, as he does, he, so amazingly, probably better than anyone on the planet, really gets to the root of what's going on with these people and breaking it down and bringing it to the surface. And, their sexual life was off and all the problems and whatever. And he basically, in that moment, he had them create a character, create he gave them new names. What is this new person like? And, sort of rewrote and then superimposed this character onto, the people that he was talking with. And then, of course, the next day revisited with them, and they had like the most amazing night of their life and all these things. So it's such a great example example of, your life is a story. This whole thing, as I think Shakespeare said, the whole world is a stage and we are the actors. And you can rewrite it anytime by telling a new story of who you are, and playing with it in this way is such a great way, using that imagination, the most powerful tool that you have, in my opinion, to rewrite the story of who you are and who you're going to be next. You have no obligation to be who you were yesterday or 5 seconds ago, for that matter.
Right. That's how I could change from Scarlett to Dorothy. I just changed my mind, and I just connected with a part of myself that had the power of Dorothy. Right.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that whole concept and idea. I'd like to switch gears a little bit. We've talked a little bit about synchronicity, and listeners know I absolutely love getting stories of synchronicity or serendipity or, positive paranormal story. And I would love to hear if you have something good to share.
Yeah, I am a synchronistic machine. I mean, I create so many synchronicities in my life. And I think the one that I would love to share is about my book, like the writing of my book. Mm-hmm. So when I told you already, it was my dream. I wanted to publish with Hay House, and I got the opportunity that I was going to be able to turn in a proposal to them because I went to the Hay House Writers Workshop, which for any of the listeners who are interested in becoming a Hay House author, there is a Writers Workshop coming up in Orlando, Florida, October 21st and 22nd. And if you connect with me in any way through Facebook or Twitter or wherever, I would be happy to get you information on attending the workshop. Cool. So anyway, I go to the workshop and they teach you how to write a proposal, and everyone gets the opportunity to turn one in. So I was originally writing a business book that was based on my same work, but it was more professional development than personal development. Mm-hmm. And I was working on this for months and months, and I realized quite at the last minute that there was a broader perspective to my work, and I needed to switch it to personal development because Hay House was not going to publish a business book because it's not in alignment with their branding.
Sure.
And so what was that? That was basically my intuition. That was my higher self telling me information that I needed to know. It was taking information out of my subconscious mind, which is all knowing, and putting it up to my conscious mind. So I could not figure out how to change this proposal. So I had a trip planned to go to the Monroe Institute, and the Monroe Institute it's in Virginia. Mm-hmm. Bob Monroe has these wonderful books. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but it's basically about out-of-body experiences. Yep. And he created the technology behind what we now know as binaural beats. He invented that 60 years ago. I mean, I'm probably wrong on the amount of years, but a long time ago. So anyway, I meet this guy, Will Harris, and Will Harris and I have the same birthday. So Will decides that we are twins, even though he's 2 years older than me. October 30th, 1973.
Ah, okay. Cool.
So he is October 30th, 1971.
Okay.
So he decides we're twins, even though I'm 5'10" white girl and he's like a 5'5" bald black man.
Right.
But okay, so yeah. So anyway, we just became besties. So he says, oh, and by the way, turns out we both have the same birthday as Bob Monroe, the actual founder of the Monroe Institute. So that was kind of like a fun fact. Yeah, totally fun fact.
My son's October 29th.
But it was meaningful. You're October 29th?
No, my son is.
Oh, okay. So, there you go. Humans are meaning-making machines. So we made a meaning out of the fact that we had the same birthday and we were here on this meditation retreat at the same time. So Will invites me to go to New York. He says, hey, I'm speaking at this event. It's a motivational event called Willpower Weekend. So I'd like you to come and I'll share the stage with you. So of course, it was very synchronistic. He said, but Mary, this workshop is taught at Lilydale, New York. Now, Brandon, have you heard of Lilydale?
I can't say that I have.
Okay, so Lilydale is the oldest spiritualist community in the United States. Lilydale is where all the psychic mediums live. And in order to live in Lilydale, you literally have to be able to talk to dead people. So we're talking about Colette Baron Reed, these kind of people are who is at Lilydale.
Wow.
I cannot. So he says, Mary, you can't go to Lilydale and teach a business workshop. You have to make it spiritual. So it just gave the universe gave me exactly what I needed to be able to rewrite my speech, which eventually became my book proposal. And all of this happened with only 2 months left before I entered the contest and won first prize, which is a book contract.
Wow.
So I feel like that's very synchronistic because the universe fed me exactly what I needed to get to the goal that this book had to go out into the world. And, I'll be honest, when Hay House called me, I went through a little bit of like, why me? Or, I'm not worthy of this honor. And I had to it took me a few months to understand that, the universe decided that this book was getting out to the world. I had very little to do with it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's such a great story and such a great point to be made and to be heard is, people always, a lot of times people get so concerned about, am I on the right path? Should I do this thing? And, it goes back to what Abraham talks a lot about. Get yourself in alignment vibrationally, relax about it all. And when something's really meant, the pieces will unfold in such a beautiful way where it's sort of, in this case, almost effortless, right? Not to say you don't need to put effort in, but the unfolding of it is so natural and it becomes so apparent of the path that, one should take versus trying to go out into the world and force something to happen and force a square peg into a round hole. Take a step back and get yourself in the right vibrational state. Next thing you know, one step leads to another. Synchronicity with meeting this person, same birthday, you bond. It leads to another thing. It leads to another thing, and voila, there you are. Right now, you're doing all the things, the amazing things that you're doing. So I love the story from a synchronicity standpoint, and I love it from an example of how to get in the flow with your life and sort of follow the breadcrumbs, if you will.
I love that. Follow the breadcrumbs.
Exactly. One of my favorite stories as a child was Hansel and Gretel. My grandmother used to read to me. And so that instantly, if you've ever read that children's book, they're leaving breadcrumbs. And I think our higher self will definitely do that for us if we just get out of our own way.
Agreed.
Well, this, Mary, has been such an amazing experience. I appreciate you so much taking the time to come on and connect. And, speaking of connecting, what is the best way for people who want to follow your work and pick up your book and all those things? How do they find you?
The easiest way to find me is anywhere on social media under the name Mary, Mary, Shores, Shores. So we definitely have a free gift for your listeners today, which is Ignite Your Dreams. We've provided you the link. Ignite Your Dreams is a 5-day personal development challenge. It's a 26 full color page book that if you use that link, or you can also find it on maryshores.com. Just hit the button that says Ignite Your Dreams. It'll give you a free download and you can get started transforming your life right away. You can also do that by joining our Fearless Ambition Facebook group. So we have people who are doing all of this stuff and sharing their powerful stories of what they're getting out of it. And please, if you're ready to, jump on Amazon.com and search Conscious Communications with an S on the end, authored by Mary Shores, published by Hay House, and grab your copy today.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the free gift. I know everyone will appreciate that, and I'm sure many listeners will take you up on that. And other than that, I do have one last question I'd like to leave you with. And that is, in 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Mary Shores?
Well, the meaning of my life is to always grow and expand and to work towards what I've called my magic 8, which is 8 things I want to manifest in my lifetime. So everything I do is to strive for that goal.
Love it.
Just to grow and expand.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Mary, for helping us to grow and expand here today. And I look forward to continuing to stay in touch. And until our paths should cross in person, I'm sure they will at some point. Journey well.
Thank you, Brandon.
Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. If you have enjoyed this positive download from our hearts and minds to yours, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on iTunes, since iTunes is the holy grail of all things podcasting. Your good reviews help us to reach more listeners. Also, we would be extremely appreciative if you would tell your friends and family about the show. Our sincere intent with the Positive Head podcast is to spread positivity to the world because we're selfish, quite honestly. I say that jokingly, but really only halfway joking. I'm referring to the good kind of selfish based on the knowing that we all get what we give in this life, because when we give, we're actually always giving to extensions of self, since we're all really one in the same consciousness, just in different bodies. So if you want to be a good selfish along with us by helping to spread the positivity, by all means, please proceed to shout about the Positive Head podcast from your rooftop. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.